Welcome to Finding Your Voice. It's our second episode. I'm Heidi Scheller, and I'm glad you're listening. So I'm excited about today's episode, our second episode. We have a wonderful guest on the show today. Her name is Larisa Oleynik, and you have probably seen her in one of the many shows, projects she's been a part of. She's been acting since she was 7 years old when she played young Cosette and young Eponine in a production of Les Miserables, and just took off from there. Ended up having stardom as a tween, really, not even a teenager. At 12, she got a starring role on a Nickelodean show called The Secret World of Mack, and just kept working from there, and has had a really interesting career. Has done a lot of different kinds of projects, a lot of television, some movies that you might have seen her in. And she is just such a lovely, wonderful person on so many levels. She came into my class we couldn't quite figure it out, but we think it's about 5 years ago. She found her way to my class, to taking the voice work that I teach, and did all of the levels of my class with me. And 5 years later is still using the tool of the voice work in her professional life, in her personal life. She still warms up regularly, and we talk about that in the podcast and talk about how the voice work has been really useful to her and how it's influenced her life in certain ways. And it's just really exciting to hear about how someone moving forward from having taken the works so many years ago is still using it very productively in their life and in their work, and how it's still benefiting them. I know for myself on a personal level, I've been doing it now for forever, it feels like, for probably over 20 years now, or somewhere around the 20-year mark. And I know that for myself personally, it still helps me every single day. It still grounds me and helps me to feel more connected, helps me to be more expressive, helps me to be more authentic in the way I express myself, both personally and professionally. So, but it's always so heartening for me to talk to people that I've taught now over the years who have the same experience, and just to hear their experience. It's just wonderful to get to have that experience of getting to talk to someone like Larisa and hear about how it's been working for her, and also just how she's doing. So you'll get to hear from her in a few minutes. And just to talk a little bit about where we are right now. So it's March, late March. And of course, in Los Angeles, the weather is lovely. It's sort of different all over the place. I know they just got snow on the East Coast, but it's definitely still the middle of whatever kind of sick season is going on this year. I teach at 2 schools, and it's just been flooded with all kinds of illness, just influenza and some kind of awful stomach virus is going around, and every kind of upper respiratory illness people can have, they have. Coughing and sneezing and hacking and allergies, just all kinds of stuff like that going on. And it's very challenging. It's challenging for me because I'm exposed a lot, because I'm around so many students who get sick, because in the school environment, there tends to be more of it since people are working in small groups together. And then, of course, I'm teaching voice, so we're breathing and making sound and sort of probably putting our germs into the air on a constant basis. So it takes a lot to try and stay healthy and not actually come down with anything. And I actually did come down about 2 months ago with a terrible virus. I'm not sure what it was, but it kind of landed in my throat, and my throat got very swollen, and I had a high fever for about 5 or 6 days. And the one thing I can say is, as miserable as I was when I got sick like that, was that my voice stayed strong. My voice, even with my throat closing up and swelling up, I still managed to have a voice, a pretty strong voice through that whole sickness. And I have to say, I know it's because I work on my voice on a daily basis, that there's a kind of resiliency and a kind of endurance and strength that my voice has that it wouldn't have without that. And I know that, before I did this voice work, if I got sick the way I did a couple months ago, I would have had laryngitis. I would not have had a voice. But this work really helps to keep my voice healthy in all situations, which is a really wonderful thing. And I think there are benefits from doing the warm-up, the voice warm-up in the short term and the long term. The short term, of course, being that after you do a warm-up, you'll generally feel just more grounded, more open, more connected to your breath, more relaxed. Your voice, of course, will feel more dynamic and more colorful and more resonant and more open. And that all of those things are just wonderful in the moment, and they will tend to serve you throughout your day as you kind of move through your day. But in the long term, doing the warm up regularly is great, for many reasons, just in terms of the overall health of the voice. And as I said, just the endurance and the longevity and the strength and the resilience of it. It's quite amazing to me, like I said, getting ill and still being able to have a voice and not losing it. So to talk a little bit about some of the basics, I feel like people sometimes will ask me, like, what are the best things that the best or the worst things that you can eat or drink to take care of your voice? And it's very basic, and I think a lot of people know some of these, but I think it's worth talking about, especially, as I said, in this season while people are coming down with all kinds of things, just what's best for your voice. How do you take care of your voice? What to avoid? I think most people have probably heard avoid dairy. People hear that, I'm not supposed to, don't ever eat dairy. And what I would say is, first of all, I'm a believer in moderation. I'm not a believer in like abstaining from everything all the time. But what I always say is that, it is true about dairy. When you eat, milk or yogurt or anything that's sort of, that's anything in the dairy family, it will definitely cause more mucus and more phlegm in your throat. So what I say is, don't drink a big glass of milk, don't have a bowl of ice cream, don't have a bowl of yogurt right before going into an audition, right before a performance, right before an important talk or an interview. Anything where you really want to have a clear voice, that's probably when you want to avoid having the dairy. You don't want to have it right before. And if you can abstain from it that day, that's probably a smart thing. And if you tend to eat a lot of dairy and you notice that you tend to be a little more phlegmy in general, that might be what's causing it. Sugar will also tend to do that as well. Sugar will cause phlegm. So sugary sodas, or any just kind of basic sugary, foods or drinks, they'll also tend to cause more phlegm as well. So they're good to avoid as well when you need to have a clear voice. And then the other two beverages that you want to be aware of in terms of your voice are alcohol and caffeine. Now, alcohol and caffeine are different from dairy and sugar in that they won't cause phlegm, but they will dehydrate you. They're both dehydrants. And so if you're doing a lot of alcoholic drinking or a lot of caffeine drinking, you'll tend to dry out. And so again, moderation is the key, and to just be aware if you have something important going on the next day and you're going to be doing some alcoholic drinking the night before, you want to try and drink a lot of water, either while you're drinking the alcohol, in between drinks, or certainly when you get home or the next morning, you want to try to super hydrate to try and make up for what the alcohol is going to do. And caffeine in the same way, if you're drinking like 8 cups of coffee a day, that's definitely going to take a toll on you in terms of obviously probably making you jittery as well, but dehydrating your body and your vocal cords in particular. So, if you're doing a lot of caffeine, try and cut it down, try and go back and forth between water and coffee. Of course, water, I can't emphasize water enough. Water's the very best thing you can be taking into your body. It's the one thing that will kind of hydrate you and keep your vocal cords lubricated, and it will help wake you up better than caffeine will. I mean, of course, caffeine will give you the quicker jolt, but water will kind of give you the more even level of alertness throughout your day. So water is always the best thing. And then in terms of what is good to drink besides water, I always say just herbal teas are the best thing, non-caffeinated teas, like any kind of herbal tea. And there's so many great herbal teas out today. I mean, you can just go to like the supermarket and there are just so many amazing kinds and flavors now. So herbal teas are the best. And people have different thoughts about like, honey and lemon and that kind of thing. But I think whatever really feels good or what works for you, I personally don't have a problem or think that honey or lemon are going to hurt or hinder your voice in any way. So those are the best things that you can drink. I mean, it's sort of your options. If you really want to take care of your voice and have a really open, clear voice, your options are pretty limited. You kind of want to stick to water and herbal teas, and avoid the caffeine, avoid the alcohol, avoid the dairy, avoid the sugar. Those are the best things you can do. And I think just in terms of keeping your immune system strong, those are also probably the best things you can do at this time of year. So, the focus, of course, for this podcast being the health of your voice, but ideally we want to stay healthy altogether. But if we do end up coming down with something, it's nice to have a voice, when you end up catching something. So just because you end up having a cough or a cold, you don't want to lose your voice as well, because that's incredibly frustrating. So that is my advice for today, and I hope it's helpful. I hope you enjoy listening to my interview with Larisa, and I will see you on the other side. Hey, Larisa.
Oh, hi, Heidi.
So thanks for coming on this is the second episode of Finding Your Voice.
Oh, fantastic. The second episode. How
It's
exciting.
only the second episode. Yes, you're special. You
I
are
feel so cutting edge.
You are. And I'm really thrilled you're coming on. Thank you so much. It's great to get to talk to you and have you as a guest on the show.
It's my pleasure.
So, and you're in New York right now.
I am in New York.
How's it going there?
Where it snowed yesterday.
I heard. Are you buried or is it
No.
cleaned up?
No. It's all melted off already. But I felt like I'd been doing a pretty good job of winter. Like I just felt like I was like, yeah, everyone keeps asking me, and I feel like I'm doing great. And then yesterday was the first day that I was like, no, I'm over it.
How long have you been back there?
I moved here in August.
Oh, okay, so pretty recently.
Yeah, very recently. Or it still feels very recent. I still have boxes and don't quite have like a desk set up yet, or no window treatments yet. We'll see.
It takes a while. Are you going to be doing the back and forth thing? Coming back and forth to LA?
Yes, I am actually doing the back and forth thing more than I had anticipated. But I also thought that I was just going to give it a year. And now I'm realizing that I want to give it more than a year. So I feel like now that I know I'm going to be here for more time, like the back and forth thing is kind of necessary.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure like there's, auditions to be had on both coasts, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make myself as available as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I write. That's what I write to my agents whenever I'm letting them know. Like, hey, I'll be in LA for a couple of days if you want to set up auditions for me there. Or I can stay in New York, whichever is best. It's pilot season. I will swallow fire, whatever you need.
Right. Well, that's a great attitude. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, since of course, we'll get to the voice work and how you came to that, but I always love to, talk to people a little bit about, their background and how they came into acting. And I know that you had a lot of success really early on
Yes.
as an actor. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about, how did you start acting, and how did you, what brought you into the work opportunities you had so early on?
Well, I actually, and now, of course, when I hear these stories, I hate these people, but I actually booked my first audition. I was 7 at the time.
Wow.
But I started doing Les Miserables at the Current Theater in San Francisco, and that was just I was a kid who likes to perform, and my dad was musical, and so we sang together, and I played piano, and that was an ad that my godparents saw in the newspaper.
For what? For a production?
For Les Miserables.
Oh, Les Miserables. Okay.
Yeah, for Young Cosette and Les Miserables, and so my mom and I took the day off and drove into San Francisco, and didn't quite realize that it was a professional production. It was one of those. We didn't realize it was a professional production. We also didn't realize it was like quite the cattle call that it was. So I think we waited for like 5 hours or something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. And actually, no, this is really interesting. And I think that this is a lot of, we'll tie it in right away. Because, they were very adamant about not wanting kids who sounded too professional. They didn't want the kids who were, belting Barbra Streisand. They wanted simplicity and honesty. And I mean, I did not, nor do I have like a fantastic singing voice, but they just wanted it honest and simple. And that's what I gave them, and that's why I booked the job.
It's such a great lesson, just in the fact that like they were looking for truth, they were looking for honesty. They weren't they weren't looking for like the shiny.
Like this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't want polish. They didn't want perfection.
That's amazing. So you ended up, was that just like a short run, or was that
no, it was in San Francisco for 2 years. I did it for a year. They did one round of kids for a year and then another round of kids for a year.
Wow. So you just got like thrown right in at such a young age.
I got thrown right in it. And it's just one of those things. I just loved it so much.
At that point, did you have any kind of, you said you were 7. Did you have any kind of technique or like way of taking care of your voice at that point, or were you just kind of going with the flow?
Well, luckily, I think for the, no, I did not. Luckily it's just the one song, really,
right,
that Young Cosette does, and we alternated. I would do Young Cosette one night and Young Eponine the next, and Eponine doesn't have any lines.
Right.
So it really worked out. But I do remember, oh my God, one thing that is funny that stuck out for me is that I remember, if we'd have a matinee and then an evening performance, and if I was doing the evening performance, I do remember like hearing the other adults in the cast talk about dairy, and so I do distinctly remember being like, I'll have a bacon cheeseburger, no cheese, at Wendy's or whatever, in between performances. That was one thing that I do remember picking up. I think just because the adults around me said that.
It's so funny because I'm going to talk about that in today's, in the beginning of the episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about all of that, what to avoid, what to eat, not to eat, what to drink, what to not to drink. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I could use that. Yeah. So I actually think for the little boys it was harder because they had a lot more to do. But for us, it was just one little song that we had to do every night. So then I just kind of kept going. That's how it started.
And then did you? So that was in San Francisco. So did you eventually start to come down to LA to audition in LA? I started
auditioning in LA when I was 10 or 11, I think, and then eventually my mom and I, and she retired at this point. Eventually, she and I would come down for pilot season. Mm-hmm. So we'd stay at the Oakland Apartments in Burbank for February and March every year.
And then, were you working during that time? Were you getting stuff? Or?
Yeah, I started working in television when I was about 11, and then I booked this Nickelodeon show, which is sort of like what people know me as.
Right, the Secret World, right?
Yeah, if they don't think that, or they know me from that, or they just think we went to camp together, just because it's, from childhood.
Right.
I booked that when I was 12, and I did that from 12 to 16.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize you were that young, so you got that at 12.
Yeah.
Again, that and just thrust in and probably started getting recognized pretty quickly after that became successful.
that aspect of it, I don't think I ever quite got comfortable with. Not in a I don't mean that in a necessarily negative way, but I'm still like, it's just something that I just never quite adjusted to. But actually, it's really funny to think. I was really young, but at that point, it had felt like I had been in the business for so long. And I was really lucky that it was Nickelodean, and a version of Nickelodeon at the time that was just. And I'm not speaking to how they are now. I just think that these child actors are so much more polished now. But definitely at the time, they really, same thing. They wanted us to be kids. They wanted us to be normal.
So how did you know how to act? I mean, was it just sort of learned?
I started taking acting classes and and then eventually, everything that I did, I just tried to, be Claire Danes in my so-called life for a while. I had some really good acting classes. But, it's always just about, I think it's always just about being comfortable and relaxed and yourself in whatever version of yourself is appropriate for the circumstances and for the character that you're playing. And I just so happened to be playing a 12-year-old girl, so, it was pretty
relatable in a certain way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not like I was, doing Shakespeare. Yeah.
So, and then
but
go on.
Sorry. No, ask.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then did you go to school after? Were you going to normal schools at this point, or?
I stayed in school. Well, luckily it was private school, because I don't think there's any way I would have been able to stay in public high school. I just think it would have been too, I don't think teachers would have been as accommodating. But yeah, I mean, even at that point, they would tape the classes for me, tape them on cassette and send them in the mail for me.
That's amazing.
I know. That part was actually really hard, because I was just always behind.
I'm sure.
But, I don't think, and I learned from a very early age to operate on, 6 hours of sleep. But I was able to, I'm glad that I was able to maintain, all my same friendships, go to my same school. I got the hand-me-down Mercury Sable, Nothing was too extraordinary. I was just working, I was just working.
So, it sounds like you were able to sort of keep a sense of groundedness, even though you were having this kind of unique childhood experience.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. That was just important to me. It's just important to maintain that.
And then did you also, did you go to college, or did you just keep working right after high school?
I went to school. I took time off. I went to Sarah Lawrence in New York.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah. And actually, when I decided to move back here, it's because I went to my 10-year reunion this summer, and I just loved it so much that I was like, yeah, gotta do it. Gotta go do a year in New York for sure. So I loved Sarah Lawrence. I didn't study theater there, though.
I was going to say, what did you study there?
It's just sort of well, no, that's not true. It's a proper academic institution. You can be a very serious student. I was not. I treated it sort of like summer camp, and I just took writing classes and music classes and the occasional poli-sci class. But I just you can kind of do whatever. You can design your own schedule there.
Yeah, and it's like a really, I know it, at least my knowledge of it is just that it's known as a really great liberal arts college. It's just a small, strong liberal arts college.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is that, you really have to like the classes you're taking, because they're kept very small.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 12 people to a class, and
Wow.
you sit at a round table, and it's a discussion. It's not like, we have lectures, but really most of your classes are discussions. You meet with your professors, you design your own projects. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. I'm a total fan.
And such a good experience just in getting rounded and getting to do other things after spending your youth and teenage years doing acting.
Right.
So when you were you were done that, were you like, I want to go back to acting, or did you have?
Yeah, honestly, it helped me realize that I am a multifaceted human. It's just that I've been working for so long that it helped me sort of get in touch with just exactly what you're saying, to get in touch with those other aspects that weren't just about work or school. I mean, school in the elementary school where it's reading, writing, arithmetic. And I was like, great, this is fantastic. I like all of these other things, but I have a really great job. I have a really great job, and I recognize this, and I'm grateful for it now in a different way. So I'm going to go back and do that. And it took a while, and it's still, it's always a work in progress. It's, and we are always in process. But yeah, I love, and that's why I just love that with acting, there's always so much to learn. I mean, everything is a business expense as far as I'm concerned. There's always something to apply. And that's sort of how I found. I study a lot of different ways in, but that's sort of how I found my way to Stella Adler. And I remember, just kind of being like, I want sort of the theater 101 experience that I've never really let myself have before.
And did you know about the Linklater voice work in particular when you came to the Adler, or
no, not at all. I don't even remember how I stumbled into it. I don't, because I was just doing. I didn't do the 2-year program or anything.
Right.
I was just there, just taking classes, and I don't even remember, Heidi. I know that, and honestly, it's the only class that I did Laura's technique class. And I think beyond that, yours is the only class I did, and I did all 3. Or I know there's 4, but I didn't take it to the final.
No, you did. Well, there might have been 4 at that time. Now it's back to 3. So I know you did.
Oh, okay.
I think you did.
So I did.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know. I didn't know at the time that that's why I ended up there. But that it ended up being my big takeaway.
Right.
From Stella. Was doing the voice work with you.
And I just to let you know, I always enjoy working with the actors. My favorite students to work with are the actors who, like you were saying, are into always kind of working on the craft and finding the process and knowing that it's something that you can keep working on, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much you're working that, you can keep discovering aspects of yourself in the process and, just the craft itself. So.
Oh, absolutely. There's always, I still feel like, it's so funny. We talk about this, I've been doing this, I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface. Honestly, there's just so much, and we're so lucky that we get to, because it's such a great sort of lens to view life with too. Is that it's it's all process.
Yeah.
and there's always more. And sometimes it feels like you make progress, and sometimes you go backwards, and sometimes you realize that something that you've been working on from 5 years ago comes up again in the work, and it's isn't that interesting?
Absolutely. It's a constant discovery. In terms of this voice work, I've been doing it for, probably, 20 years at this point, or maybe even a little longer, 20, 21 years. And I still feel like it's a discovery process. And I have students come up to me and tell me things that I haven't seen in 6 years. And they'll come up and they'll say, oh my God, I just had this release in my jaw that it was unbelievable, and so it's amazing how, we can keep sort of finding things or changing or shifting things as we, as the years pass on. That it's like the discovery process continues.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So tell me a little bit. So you came to the Adler. You ended up in the Linklater class with me. So what, I know like it's going back a ways now, but what was if you can remember, your initial experience, in discovering that work? What was it about it that was the big takeaway, or that what really kind of interested you or helped you in some way?
Well, I love that it's so integrative. It's not treating the voice necessarily as a separate. I didn't know going into it. You just think voice class, like this will be about voice, and it's like, well, it's about so much more than voice.
Right.
And that's what I find so profound about it. But it's just like recognizing that voice is one of the major sort of channels that we have for expression, but I love that it's not about. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I love that it's not about having a perfect voice. It's just about having whatever voice is like the most dropped in for you in that moment. And that's sort of like the work that I like to do in general, acting wise. That's always what I come back to, is the moment to moment work, and just just being connected and present and available, really. And so it's just, I love it because it's just a way to open up. It's just opening up that channel. And oh my God, my cat is distracting me right now. She's like, I have a voice.
They certainly have free voices. They can yap.
Oh boy. And so that was the thing that when I saw it on other people, I was so amazed by, and that was really the thing that kept me coming back for more, was seeing the difference when you would work with people in, like, you just saw more of them. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's like someone's up there and they're nervous and they're guarded and they're tense, and then all of a sudden, like, it takes so little before, like, one of those layers just gets taken away and you go, oh, hello, human.
Right.
Oh, I can relate to that.
A lot of the time it's just letting the breath drop in, right? All of a sudden somebody allows a breath to drop in and you just see that person open. And again, I agree with you that it's not about, and I talk to my students all the time about this, it's not about sounding pretty, or it's not about having a beautiful voice. It's about having a truthful voice, expressing yourself from a truthful place, and having the voice that can reflect or express like the gamut of things you're feeling in that moment. And it might in fact not sound pretty at all. It might sound, it might have like whatever, your voice might sound strange or, high pitched or whatever it might be. But I think when there's truth in it and it's coming from that place of freedom, it's very profound, and we as an audience can then connect to that performance more deeply.
Mm-hmm. And it's so much more interesting. It's because it's about acceptance too. It's like, oh well, and that's actually that's so funny, we haven't even talked about this, but I started doing some actual voice work after I was in the class. Like I was doing animation, and the thing that I loved about it so much is that it's so much harder when it's our face and our bodies and, for on-camera stuff. But what I loved about just doing the voice, like just doing voice work, is that I was like, oh, the best thing about it, the most interesting thing about it as an actor, is that sometimes I'm like, that's how that wanted to come out. Okay.
Yes.
That's how that wanted to come out. Okay, that's what's happening. Great. I accept that. I accept that is what that character wants to sound like today.
I love that, because that's all about the spontaneity of being in the moment and being surprised. Allowing yourself to actually discover and be surprised in that moment by what comes out of you, and it coming from that real place. But you're being like, wow, okay, that's how I express that in that moment.
And not trying to shut it down then, not trying to not having that moment and then being like, wait, hold on, wait. I mean, a lot of it has really been about, when I say acceptance, but it's about just, let's just leave it at acceptance. I was going to say it's kind of like self-love too. You can't say like, no, I want myself to be different. It's like, well, here it is.
No, I think it definitely can cross over into that. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's funny. I think a lot of the time when people walk into my voice class, and I know when I walked into my first voice class as a student, like I didn't realize how complex, how complex this thing actually is, that it's not just the sound that's coming out, but that it's connected to like every part of our being and who we are. And so I think that's actually really valid. I think, it does cross over into that. And when you're really just like kind of allowing, yourself to say it the way it wants to be said, there is that, that aspect of like, self-love, self-acceptance, just being, just.
Yeah.
That is so great. I'm so glad you shared that about the animated voice work. I love hearing that, because that's definitely a whole other side of it, and that's where, the focus is obviously simply, on the voice. I would love to hear how.
I did my warm-ups every single morning.
That's what I was just going to ask you about. So you took you learned the work now, several years ago. I don't know how we were trying to figure it out, but we can't remember, right? But probably at least like 5, right? 5 years ago, maybe?
I think so.
Something like that. So how do you use the work today, like, and both professionally, for your career? Obviously, you just said you did your warm-ups, professionally, and even if there's any crossover just into regular life. How do you feel it kind of working in your life on those two levels, and how do you use it?
Well, I definitely like to warm up before work, certainly. Definitely before work. It was so funny, even when I was doing the animated show, there were times that I'd get there, just 10 minutes early, and I'd be like, well, I just have to do it in my car. So I'd park and like push the seat all the way back, and I'd be like, trying to do like cat-cow in my car. But it's still better than nothing. It is better than nothing.
It is. No, it absolutely is.
It's actually really funny. I was just saying that, since I'm in this new apartment building, we can kind of hear everything. I was like, they must wonder what's going on sometimes in the morning.
Yeah, you just got to kind of let it go. Let them wonder.
Exactly. So I definitely I'm superstitious about it. I think I already told you that. Like, it's not even that. I just know that I feel better. I just know that and so I use it for work, obviously, just to be, especially when I'm doing voice work, like that's just kind of a no-brainer. But then, I found myself even, I had warmed up at home, but then, somewhere between home and the subway and getting to the audition and, worrying that I was a little late or whatever, I had time in the bathroom to just or, oh my gosh, elevators are amazing too, for just a quick shake.
Yeah.
For just a quick shake and release. But then, in life, I do. It's just in life, like, I feel, and that's just getting older too, but my nerves used to dominate me a lot more. And I think nervous energy is incredibly useful, but what
it can be if you're not getting hindered.
Yeah, that's what I'm I think it can be. Yeah, I think it can be. But there's a difference between, like shaking it out and being totally present, and then recognizing like, oh, well, isn't that interesting? There's still some nerves there. Okay, and just letting your nervous energy like dominate, which is how I very much used to operate with that energy, like. First, like, forward. And it's nice now to feel like control is not the word I want to use, but that like, it's more something that I can, like, access if I feel like it's serving me, instead of just being like, well, okay, now we're on a roller coaster of nervous emotion, and I am somewhere on the side. So yeah, for that, I do. I feel like it has really just an overall. It's grounded my energy in a different way.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's so great hearing you talk about this, because I feel like this is stuff I talk about like on the first day of class. Really, like I talk about how, that nervous energy it's the most natural thing in the world, especially when there are any kind of high stakes involved, which of course, hello, audition, anytime you're going into an audition, like, you're going to have nervous energy. But yeah, the thing is like, is that nervous energy, can that just exist as energy, so that it's energy that you're channeling into whatever it is that you have to do in that moment?
Right.
Or is that energy going to come up in a bunch of habitual tension, muscular tension and holding a breath and all that stuff, where it's going to completely block you? And I think it's just wonderful what you're describing, because I think it's just sort of the essence of like how the work can help you to find that the usefulness of that energy without letting it get in your way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I love that you do the quick shakeouts in the elevator. And I sometimes will talk about the 5-minute bathroom stall warm up. Again, like the pre-audition. When you've got that 5 minutes, and even just taking like 5 minutes. Even if you can't use your voice, let's say you can't use your voice, but you've got 5 minutes, you can still apply like the elements of the relaxation and the breath and the fundamentals of the work that will ultimately help you be more connected to your voice when you go into your audition.
Yeah. Well, I used to be self-conscious about it too, and I'm just like, I don't know. I think that actors sort of have that weird thing of like not. Like, it feels like we're showing our cards if we're trying to prepare, and I'm just, like, so over that. I was totally warming up I'm not trying to distract anyone, but, I was like, if people want to pay attention to me doing this out in the hallway right now, they can. I was like, it's what I need to do right now. I was just shaking out my jaw and shaking out my hands.
Yeah. I think that's great.
And I was like, if I don't care if anyone thinks this looks weird.
Yeah, I think if you're doing it in the audition, then that might be a problem. But I think outside the door is fine. That's like the classic, whatever, the cliche joke where they, where they do the skits where they show the actor like dropping up and down and shaking out like in front of the auditioner, but I think out in the hallway is like exactly when you should be doing it, Shake out those last minute nerves.
It is really incredible that however many years later since having this class that it still has such a profound effect on me and my work.
Wonderful. Well, that's honestly the idea is that you're a wonderful poster child for it, because the idea is that you come in and you learn it, and then it's just a tool that you have forever, that you can use forever. And you're clearly doing that. We're not at forever, but 5 years down the line, it's amazing that you're still using it. And like we were talking about before, I think it only gets better, the more you do it. It's like you keep opening and discovering and kind of figuring yourself out and how you tick and all of those aspects of self. So it's fabulous.
Right.
I love that you're still doing it, That's why I wanted to talk to you.
I should come in next time I'm in LA. I should drop in on one of the classes.
Absolutely, all my students are always welcome to do that. So, and I would love that. It would tickle me to have you there. It would be great. You can come check in with us and do a warm up.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to start. We'll see what happens. I'm in teacher training right now for my studio that I've been doing scene study at forever now. But it's one of the things, I think I told you this in the email, it's one of the things that I think about. I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to, I want to do teacher training with you, because it's one of those things, it's a shame that there is no sort of vocal component to this work this scene study work that we're doing. I'm like, because it's really all the same thing. And I just think there's trying someone to drop in, and then there's, really feeling it in your body and sort of like building up that muscle of like, oh, this feels so different.
Well, that'll be a whole other conversation that we can save for outside the podcast. But let me know. We can totally talk about that, and I would love to help you if that's a path you end up wanting to go down. So, I wanted to just ask you before we wrap up: are there any current projects or upcoming projects that you'd love to share about?
To promote right now?
Yeah, that you want to promote or plug?
No, I'm figuring it out. Today is actually a very good day. Like, I'm figuring it out today. I'm figuring out what the next project is. So we'll see.
So we'll keep our ears up and our eyes open.
Okay. Okay, fantastic.
That sounds great. Well, Larisa, thank you so much for talking today. It's been really great to just hear about what's going on and just your journey with this work as well.
Well, yeah. Thanks, Heidi.
All right.
It's fun to just hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. Yours as well. All right. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Well, that was fantastic talking to Larisa. She is amazing. She's the poster child for this work, the unofficial poster child. I think she really is a great example of someone who has worked really hard and has the talent to back it up and has really benefited from the work she's put in. She came to this, in particular, this voice work, and has continued to use it to her benefit. And it makes me so happy to talk to an actor with her kind of talent and success, and know that this work is helping her as she moves forward on her path, and to just see the benefits of the basic tool just really working in her favor. It's really great and wonderful. And she's also just a great person to boot. So thank you to Larisa Oleynik for coming on and sharing her experiences with us. And I know I really appreciated hearing about it, and I wish her well as she moves forward onto whatever comes next. And I'll look forward to keeping my eye out to whatever that might be. And I wish you well on whatever your path is for today, for tomorrow. Stay healthy. Stay away from that sugar and that dairy and that milk and that alcohol and caffeine if you're trying to get out there and use your voices in any kind of productive way. Just make sure to use those in moderation and be careful of using any of them right before any big moment for your voice. And take care of yourselves. I wish you well and have a wonderful day. If you'd like to contact me or learn more about my voice work, please check me out at my website, www.HeidiScheller.com. That's spelled HeidiScheller.com. You can check that out at any time. And I'll look forward to next time when I will be talking to somebody else who is finding their voice.